I don't feel alone. We just settled in and it already feels like home.
You're listening to the Feels Like Home podcast with Mike Throne and Marty Ford. Powered by Horizon. This is big. This is gig.
Welcome back to the Feels Like Home podcast this week. Really excited to hopefully introduce you, if you don't know, Jeremy Parkins from Dress Right Dress, which was founded in 2015. And it's a group that aligns veterans for a better tomorrow. And they deal a lot with veterans that are incarcerated and about to come out, or that are just coming out of the service. But really, Jeremy talks very passionately about what he does, much better than I could even say it. So we're going to get to it today. We're also going to, at the end, talk a little bit about the proposed closure of the VA facility. I really encourage you to stick around for that because it's very, very important for our community. And Jeremy throws some numbers at us that I hadn't fully fleshed out yet. So it's really, really important. And so we hope that you stick around and listen to all of this with Jeremy Parkins from Dress Right Dress. So Jeremy Parkins with Dress Right Dress is with us today. And we were just talking about this because Jeremy testified before the Ohio House.
Correct.
Probably a couple months ago now, I guess.
No, the Ohio House was actually 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. Okay. Because I thought it said March, but it probably did say May.
Well, we started working with District Representative Mark Johnson and then Senate Representative Bob Peterson back in February. But the actual testifying wasn't actually in front of even the House. It was the Veterans Affairs Commission or Committee for the House.
Mm-hmm. And that was a couple weeks ago. So let's back up for a quick second. Tell us about Dress Right Dress and what it is. And for those of the people out there that don't know it yet, you're about to. So
right. So do you want the long version or the short version?
I mean, we got all the time in the world, so, you know.
All right. So Dress Right Dress in its own is a 501c3 nonprofit veterans organization that works with Justice of All veterans, transitional service members. And what it's about is navigating the rivers of resources and righting the ship when life comes at you hard. It's about the hardships of life that service members and veterans encounter. Myself, I'm an Air Force veteran. I served active duty from 1997 to 2005. And then after so many trips across the pond and deploying and TDYs, actually, there was a 2-year period we did a count. I was only home 22 weeks out of the 2-year period. After so many trips, you start going, okay, a cat's only got 9 lives, right? So I was like, I'm getting out. Well, let me backtrack. The Air Force came out and said, we're 16,000 people overmanned. If you want to get out, now's your time. You can either stay in, get out, and go what they call Palace Chase, which is going Guard or Reserve, or you can just get out completely. And I was like, I don't want to cut complete military ties, but I want to go back to Ohio. So I'm like, my friends are there, my family's there. You know, I'm going to get a great job. All these things are going to be awesome. You know, rainbow, sunshine, the whole thing, right? So when I got out, none of that happened. Actually, I had a job lined up. It was for a logistical company. It was making $75,000 a year at 27 years old. I mean, that's good money, right?
Yeah.
I was married at the time. My mom was in Fayette County. My sisters were in Fayette County. I had high school friends, etc. Well, when I got home, I didn't think anything was different. But at one point, it got to I was having a conversation with my mom, and she basically said, I want my son back. And I said, your son died when he left for the military. My friends were doing the same dumb crap we were doing in high school, you know. There was very limited resources as far as the veterans went. There was one Veteran Service Commission officer in Fayette County at the time. His name's Ronnie Sword. I think he's passed along, but I will never forget the guy as long as I live. But he was one guy. He was trying to do everything in his power to help me. But he was one guy. He was one resource. The VA wasn't very helpful at the time. So for me, it was easier to go hang out with my high school friends and get back into old habits, right? I already liked to fight. I was into MMA and boxing. Actually, I started taking up boxing. So you go to a bar, you hang out long enough, and you have the aggression, bad things happen.
Yeah.
I started getting in bar fights. I was going to jail almost every weekend. I was a frequent flyer at the Fayette County Jail for different stupid stuff, right? It sounded like a bad country song, is what I keep telling everybody. I lost my wife, I lost the house, I lost my job, the truck, whole shebang. I had to move in with my mom. And again, it got so bad at that point that my mom actually kicked me out and sent me to my estranged father's house in Tiffin. Me and him never really had a relationship. Next thing I know, I'm actually sitting on the couch, the doorbell goes off, and it's my stepsister and her husband. And, hey, your mom called Dad, and we're here to move you. I had no clue.
Whoa.
So it was, in hindsight, it was the best thing she could have done for me. It wasn't a quick fix, but it gave me a moment of clarity. It made me really think about things. I started really becoming self-aware about stuff that I was dealing with internally. Again, not a quick fix, took 8 years. I eventually met my new and current wife. We've been together for 14 years. We had our first child together, our son. He's 13 now. He's as big as me. But anyway, he was not even one yet. I actually remember rolling over and looking at him. He was in bed with me. And I was like, I'm wasting my life. I'm literally drinking myself to death. I'm wasting time. I'm wasting, and it wasn't, I want to be completely transparent about one thing before I go any further. I tell that story about the alcohol and stuff, but it wasn't that I was solely dependent upon alcohol. What I was doing was I was drinking my problems away.
Yeah.
It wasn't that I was bored. I was tired of, I couldn't keep a job because I didn't believe in the civilian work ethic. I thought, military was more structured. You're used to doing day in, day out jobs, the camaraderie, that sort of thing. So to this day, I still like my beer, but I had to learn how to drink responsibly.
Right.
And that was the difference for me was when I was in the military, it was work hard, play hard. Your supervisors partied with you. I mean, they were the ones supplying the beer, everything. I had to learn, if I was going to drink, I had to learn to drink responsibly. So I want to be clear about that point. But I was laying in bed. I looked at my son, and I'm like, I'm wasting my life. Got my big boy pants back on. We got back to work. At the time, I only had a high school diploma. I had a GI Bill. I was like, I'm going to go back to college. Or I'm going to go to college. Not back. I wasn't even there yet, right? I had explored college before the military, but I chose the military over college. And I went research programs, and originally I was going to go to mechanical engineering, but the class schedule didn't line up for me. I did my market research, and I looked at growing job trends. And what I actually found out, there was a 10% growth in criminal justice. So I was like, I'm going to go to criminal justice. It makes sense, right? I was a justice involved veteran. I knew some way in the future my veteran aspect in me and criminal justice were going to come together. Went to college, went straight through, went associates, bachelor's, master's, started working corrections. I started off in juvenile corrections, went to adult corrections, eventually adult reentry. I was still living in Tiffin, Ohio. I had moved back by then. Like I said, my mom sent me to my dad's. So we were living in Tiffin. I was working juvenile corrections. I started my own business, etc. But I wanted to get more in depth into the justice system. Albus, which is another nonprofit, they deal with their reentry, they halfway houses, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. They offered me a case management job, and believe it or not, the HR lady, I won't forget her either. She goes, there's a job opening in Chillicothe. Would you be interested in moving down here if we could make it happen? I said, if you make that happen, I'm going to tell everybody you need a pay raise. And she goes, why? And I told her, I said, I graduated from Westfall High School. I recruited out of Chillicothe, Ohio, and my 2 older kids live in Circleville. And she's like, really? I was like, yeah. So I came down to Chillicothe. I was working at Albus. I was the only veteran case manager in the building. So once it got out that I was a veteran, the trend started being when people were coming in that were veterans, they were coming to my caseload. And I'm listening to these stories, and I'm going, that could have been me. Easy, hands down. Had I not changed my ways, I would have been there, if not worse. And the people I dealt with, the Justice Involved veterans at that time were actually teaching me more about myself than I was probably teaching them. And that's what was amazing about the peer side of things, right? And I didn't realize it till later in the job. I was always, hey, I'm your case manager. I'm going to do this job. But it wasn't very effective. But once I stopped doing that, and I started saying, hey, you're a veteran and I'm a veteran and we're going to figure this out together, we started having huge success rates. Now, it was a very small sample size because, Alvis isn't the prison system. They don't have those numbers, right? But in the numbers that I dealt with, specifically in veterans, we had like a 95% success rate, which when you talk recidivism is ridiculous. But that is a trend among veterans courts and peer support groups for veterans specifically. We lost a couple. There's a couple that I'm still upset with the VA about, but anyway, they were teaching me, and at the same time, at the start of this job, I had already approached Alvis about doing a veterans program. I got told, nope, that's a niche market. I was like, niche market? I don't think veterans are a niche market. There's 19 million of us, et cetera, but whatever. I'm new to the job. I'm going to shut up and color, right? So working with these veterans, I started developing. Case management's always supposed to be personalized. It's personal needs, personal successes, et cetera. But I started looking at the ways that we could do it as a group, okay? So if one went to the VA, we all went to the VA. Because now there's no guesswork. There's no excuses on I didn't know where to go, I didn't know who to talk to. They could determine whether they were eligible or not. One went to the Veteran Service Commission, we all went to the Veteran Service Commission, same reason. But then we also were doing stuff as peers where we went to the Air Force Museum, we went hiking, we went to Chillicothe's Krispy Kremes, we had coffee and donuts. And you actually watch these guys, what I would go through a process I called rebluing or regreening, where they started standing up, puffing their chest out a little bit more, taking a sense of military pride back in themselves. Right. And we had guys literally turning around crying to me saying, Jeremy, thank you. I thought I was done. I caught a felony. I thought it was it. And I was like, no, you made a mistake. You're above this. Don't let your situation define you.
Yeah.
Right. And again, I started honing what I was doing, and I always kind of knew I was leaving Alvis. I just didn't know when.
Right.
Right. So I started honing this, and then I got promoted. I went to be a program manager for the facility in Toledo. Same system, worked. Then I got promoted again, became a director. I ran their Jackson Pike facility. Same system, worked. And I was like, I got something. Now in 2015, when they originally told me no, I already had been hashing things out with my wife, saying, hey, I want to do something. I just don't know what. And we talked about doing a T-shirt idea, and proceeds was to go back to existing programs. But as I got promoted, and the more I was seeing, more I was doing, I knew there was more I wanted to do. So in that kind of bird DRD, and I was like, we got to do more. We got to do more. I kept reaching out to people, colleagues that I knew, other veterans I knew, people that work in the VA system, et cetera. Even clients that I had from Alvis that were veterans that I worked with. I reached out to them. What do you think about this? And everybody was like, yes, you got to do it. That's got to happen. Took us a year to find a lawyer. Well, that was 2015. 2017, we weren't official yet, but we knew we wanted some type of peer support service or legitimacy. So we reached out to NAMI Southern Ohio, right here in Chillicothe. Formed our first partnership with them. That was great. And then in 2018, I started looking for a lawyer. It took us a year to find lawyers. Every time I reached out to a lawyer, it was the cookie cutter. Here's your 501c3, pay me. And that's not what I wanted. I wanted something very specific that I had written, that I knew that I wanted to, because it was about integrity and honor and, money pollutes nonprofits sometimes, which I'll talk more about that here in a minute. But anyway, I knew what I wanted, and it took us a year to find a lawyer. We were lucky. We found a lawyer out of Columbus named Susan Strayer. Her husband was actually a dentist at the Chillicothe VA. I told her what I was doing, what I wanted to do, and she goes, I'm in. And believe it or not, she not only wrote our 501c3 the way I wanted it written, she has done a lot of pro bono work for us. So she's been amazing. So in 2019, out of the basement of my house, Dress Right Dress was formed. Again, we were 100% volunteer force, no paid staff. We were mobile, no office, no overhead, none of that stuff. But with growth comes things that have to happen. And what happened was, with the level of involvement that I wanted in these people's lives, we do have volunteers, and we've had and currently have great volunteers. But the workload we were asking them to carry was just becoming a huge burden, to the point that 2 years ago we knew we were going to have to start paying people. You know, you can have volunteers, but when you get to the point where it's a day in, day out grind, you know, people were falling off. So we started in the basement of the house. 3 years later, I knew we were going to start looking and working with the ODRC, which is the Prison System, Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections. We knew we wanted more legitimacy outside of NAMI's, you know, peer support groups. So we applied to Ohio Mental Health and Addiction Services. This was a top-down conversation that I had with them for months. I was in your office at some point with it. We're having these conversations, and I'm telling them, hey, well, this is what we do. We're a nonprofit. We're volunteers. I'm running out of the basement of my house, and they're like, apply, you're a shoe-in. $1,300 later, I get an email that goes, we need the certificate for max occupancy and the fire inspection for the building you're going to use. And I'm going, what? What building? I told you I run this out of the basement of my house. And they're like, Ohio law requires for you to have a building. So we looked around. We actually looked hot and heavy in Chillicothe for a while. We didn't find anything, which led us to the building in Kingston, Ohio. And it's a good fit for the size of our organization and what we do. And that's where we're at.
So how many employees do you have now?
So right now we run with a team of 30 volunteers, and we just hired our 4th employee.
Okay. And you're looking for a bunch more, right?
We are looking for more employees. We want to make sure that when we hire people, one, that they're veterans, but two, we want to make sure that it caters to the veteran programs. But yeah, we're actually looking for about 5 or 6 other people.
Yeah, I saw that on your Facebook page, I think, because I think you want people from a wide array of counties, I think, right? Or you're trying to find
so people? that was the thing when I start talking about the level of commitment. You know, when 2019 we were in Ross County, and then Pickaway County, and then Fayette County, and all, you know, in our little catchment area. And then what happened was COVID, and everybody slowed down, but we never got the memo ever. So, which led to grants through the chamber.
Right.
And we knew that we had to start looking at other resources in the other counties. So yeah, we're branching out, and we're looking for personnel in other counties. But as of right now, we're looking more in this region.
Yeah. And talk a little bit about the meaning of Dress Right Dress. I mean, I know the military term, but what does it mean, and why did you name your organization after it?
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm recording here.
Oh, okay. I seen him messing around. I was like, okay, do we got to start over? No. Okay. So Dress Right Dress, one thing about me is, if you ever pay attention to little event names and stuff, I love wordplay. So Dress Right Dress is actually after the military command, Dress Right Dress, which is you are forming rank and file structure, and it's to square everybody off. And that's kind of where we adopted the name from, because it is about the peer support and the mentorship. It's about being real with each other and being in the moment with each other, you know, celebrating successes, walking those tough lines with each other, and saying, hey, you're messing up, or hey, congratulations, or just providing input and resources. Sometimes that's just a lending ear, you know, and that's what it was about. Was same thing as the military. You're using the person to the right and left of you to form a perfect rank structure. Why are we not doing the same in the civilian world? Why are we not using each other to better ourselves?
Yeah.
And that was where the wordplay came in.
Yeah. And specifically, what programs and services are you offering?
So as I mentioned, I worked in adult reentry. So we started off with the Just Involved Veteran and Volunteer Program, which is just now the Just Involved Veteran Program. That program specifically works with Just Involved veterans that are in the prison and jail system, that offers peer support, professional mentorship, resource and information building, and a plethora of other resources. There's a financial assistance piece to that if funding's available, and it's about righting the ship. It's not about them just getting out of whatever happened. It is about, hey, you got to take accountability and culpability in your situation. We're going to hold you accountable. You need to hold yourself accountable. But at the same time, we're going to help you start putting that best foot forward. In addition to that, within that program, we actually go in and talk to law enforcement, judges, corrections officers, et cetera. As a matter of fact, we're doing a 5-piece series with Ohio Department of Rehabilitation Corrections about training those that work with justice involved veterans on how to approach those veterans. Tone, body language, how you approach them, especially a combat veteran. That goes a long way. We advocate for veterans courts, we've helped judges write kind of a veteran component within their court system. So if they already have a special docket with drug treatment court or diversion court, they've called us up and we've gone to them and helped them write a veteran component to that. We still do that. That's that program specifically. Typically, a person works one-on-one. Peer support groups are required. It's goal-oriented and information referrals. And then if we will provide financial support if needed on a case-by-case basis. There is a cap on that because we're not about a handout. We're about a hand up. That's about becoming self-reliant. The other program we have, which is our transitional service member program, which is for those getting out of the military, and it's in hopes of easing transitional anxiety, which leads to pitfalls. And that basically the volunteer staff member acts as a liaison. So say you're getting out of the military and you go, hey, I want to go to Chillicothe, Ohio, but I have no clue what's there. This person is going to help put you in connection with housing, employment, resources, et cetera. That way it kind of curbs that anxiety. You're not going there blindsided. We know that program works. We have several people that use that program, whether they realized it or not, and success rates are high in that program. The most recent program we adopted was last year. Matter of fact, you people from your office helped write this program, which Wendy Bennett, shout out to her.
Yeah.
She did an excellent job and was a huge resource in this project. But there's all these temp agencies and there's all these people hiring and everything. And I'm like, the big thing for me was when I got out of the military, I was jumping job to job. I didn't know that I wanted corrections when I first got out, or I didn't know who to contact and all this and that. And then not just that, I watched it at my oldest daughter. My oldest daughter graduated from OU, Chillicothe, with a teaching degree. She doesn't teach, and I was like, I don't like seeing people go down a path that they're not going to pursue. So basically what happened was we worked with Wendy Bennett from the Ross County Chamber of Commerce, like I said, and multiple other partners. So Ohio Means Jobs, Job Development, Job Workforce, Pike County Community Actions, because they had a special population workforce development program. We worked with all these people to develop a veteran-specific work program. And what it was, I shouldn't even say work program. We tell them, if you're looking for a job, this program's not for you. McDonald's is hiring. We're wanting to put people into careers. So in that program, what's written is we will help get your certifications, whether it be CPR, OSHA, what have you. We're not a scholarship program, so we're not putting you through college, just so everybody knows. We will help buy equipment, like if you're working construction or something and you need tools, clothing. We also do interview skills, resume writing, professional mentorship, and this is a true story. That I posted the guy's picture on our Facebook page. I actually graduated that program. He was kind of our guinea pig. And Aaron, if you listen to this, you'll know I'm talking about you, buddy. But anyway, he contacted us because he was involved with Ohio Means Jobs, DVOP, which is Disabled Veterans Opportunity Center, right? Or consultant, whatever. But they called us because he was looking specifically in the justice system, and they knew that's what I did. So he was trying to decide if he wanted parole or probation officer. He couldn't decide. But because of my contacts, I was able to get him to go network and have professional mentorship to decide what he wanted to do. And that was going and working with supervisors. And what he realized after doing that with a probation supervisor and a parole supervisor was he didn't want either of those. So, but in that, he realized that I'm not going to pursue this with a college degree and all these other things that I'm going to have to put into it. So, and he realized that through that program. What he does now is he's actually a domestic violence investigator in another county. So it works. And that was the whole point. But not just that, we have professionals that are helping you with, you know, it could be something as simple as lingo when you go for a job, especially for military. Acronyms are big with us, you know. Just talk demeanor, dress and appearance, certain aspects. So we want to make sure that we're fostering, especially those coming out of incarceration, we want to foster a proper way to go into looking for a career, not a job.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, the one thing that I will say about that is that, you know, this is something that we talk about with even our high school kids today is there's a lot of opportunity for jobs out there. But the job that you have today is probably not going to be the one that you have, you know, once you graduate college or get out of school. And so that it becomes important for you to find your way, you know, and I think when I talk to kids, especially at Pickwight Ross, when I talk to kids there, those are kids that are on a specific path, right? But some of them have gotten out and used their skills for a few years and then transitioned to another career too. So, you know, never close the door and, you know, sometimes you get down the road and you think you were going down for IT and you say, oh, IT is going to be my career, but then you get interested in cybersecurity and then that evolves as well. And so I think the joy of what you're doing is that you're giving people room to grow and to say, hey, I want to do this. But when you give them the opportunity to look at it, they can say, oh, maybe that's not what I thought it was. I want to find something else.
And that's exactly what the program is about. It's about having that realization of, okay, we all think we know somebody's job. We do it all the time. This is all they do. We don't know the intricate details of that job or what goes into the training or et cetera. And it allows that, like you said, Mike, it allows that opportunity for them to go in and see it firsthand before making their final decision.
Yeah. And you mentioned your partnership with NAMI earlier. And I know that you have a few partnerships that you're working with right now and doing different things, not only to, I know like you're doing one with the Franzen Foundation for the 5K, I think down in Pike County.
Yeah. Katie's a huge supporter of us. I met her through another veterans nonprofit, and she actually came to one of our veteran suicide awareness dinners. And her and I got talking, and then she needed, we helped her with the lawyer thing. Actually, she now uses our same lawyer just because it was shared networking, right? And she's awesome at what she does. But, yeah.
The other thing that occurs to me about what you're doing, too, is I'm not a military person. It was not a military person. But it seems to me that the camaraderie of brothers in arms, people that have, especially if you've gone to battle together, is once you get out, you don't have that same sense. There may be other people that you know that are veterans, but you may have different experiences. And so this is at least a way for your organization to partner with them and create that bond again to help them in a better way, which I think is, you know, you mentioned your struggles when you got out.
Right.
You're trying to head this off at the pass for a lot of these guys and keep them out of trouble in some regards. But the ones that have already made that mistake, you're trying to give them another friend out there that can be a brother in arms that can help them get back to what they lost.
Yeah, I mean, like I talked about with my struggle, you know, it took approximately 8 years, but there was stuff that I didn't even recognize, you know. By no way, shape, or form am I going to ever admit to any type of mental health disorder or anything, for example. This is not meant to be a joke or anything, but, you know, it was actually Katie Franzen was talking about her brother, and she was talking about PTSD and hallucinations. And one of the things she talked about was auditory hallucinations. And I never put two and two together, but up until about 2 years ago, I used to hear aircraft in my ear. Until every night I went to bed, I would hear aircraft. When I used to deploy, I used to get headphones, and I would play music while I slept. You know, bomb comes in, it is what it is, right? But at least I was getting some sleep. But no lie, to this just recently, I started kind of connecting the dots. Like, was there something there? I don't hear aircraft anymore, but I used to. When I used to go to sleep, I would hear aircraft when I would go to sleep every night.
Yeah.
Do you think that's something that happens to a lot of veterans that come out of the military and they're struggling with these things and they don't recognize them themselves?
So I think that's a loaded question.
Sorry.
I think it's not a cookie cutter answer. I think it's kind of a multitude of things. One, if we could sit here and talk about mental health all day, I don't think the military does enough to recognize mental health ailments and disorders. When I served, and what's even more scary is it's still continuing to this day, is even with the research and studies that have been done with especially veteran-specific mental health disorders, the military is still kind of suck it up and press on attitude. So when they get out, to your question, it might not be, it could be both. It could be, I was always told to suck it up and press on, or I don't recognize the signs and symptoms of what's going on.
This is big. Horizon Fiber Internet is ready
Let them get you hooked up and power your Wi-Fi network
with the speed and reliability that only a 100% fiber network can do.
Horizon is ready to help you do what you do better. With real people, real rates, and a real service.
Connect with them today, and the first month is free, plus no contracts and no data caps. Call 740-772-8331
or visit horizonconnects.com/Chillicothe
to sign up today.
Right. Well, I mean, I think it's as part of your training. I'm not military either, so I wasn't in the military. But from the outside looking in, I mean, part of your training is to be a soldier, is to you kind of deal with those things.
You have to overcome.
You have to overcome
Right.
everything, and so that you're training people to ignore those things in themselves, I think.
Well, I want to give you a good example. So, and it's not really specifically mental health, but even in basic training, I talk about this all the time. No matter what branch you go into, basic training, the second you get off the bus, the plane, whatever, the second your feet hits that pavement, you're being yelled at, and you're taught to ignore the yelling. Listen to what's being said, but ignore the yelling. It's not coming at you. But even more so, when you're standing in a rank and file structure, you're not to move. Bug lands on your nose, you can't swat it. Sweat running down your face, and you want to wipe it. Your face itches, your arms itch, can't scratch it. You are taught to ignore certain things because you're taught to focus on the mission at hand,
Sure.
not what's going on. So when a lot of folks get out, I think what it is one, they're not taught to recognize signs and symptoms unless they're working social work or counseling or some type of mental health job while they're in the military. 2, they're taught to ignore things. 3, they're told to suck it up and press on. And then 4, we could go even deeper. When you get out and you go to the VA, it's here, take this medication, and that's what a lot of us don't want.
Right.
We don't want to be pulled up.
Yeah. So how do we change that? Because I think that's a very key question for us to answer for the next 10 to 15 to 20 years.
Right.
With all these young folks that have come out of all these different...
Again, I don't think there's a cookie cutter answer because I don't think it's a cookie cutter problem. I think it's a multitude of things. I mean, when we look at mental health disorders, one of the things that our organization, we're big into research. We're big into working with community partners. No matter how much I bash the VA, I still work with them. But, we, for example, look at PTSD, and we look at long-term PTSD. Typically, when you look at PTSD, it's, we hear about combat-related stress and et cetera, but we never recognize the fact that somebody might have went through childhood trauma before joining, okay? When you join the military, there is no real psych eval or mental health evaluation that's done prior to service.
Oh.
But yeah, if you join the Ohio State Highway Patrol, guess what you're going to go through?
Yeah.
Sure.
You see what I'm saying? And I get it. It's retention, numbers, power of numbers, right? But the same process when you get out. Nobody is necessarily doing a psych eval or mental health evaluation when you get out. So how are you going to know that something's not clicking right? Unless if you're going through this process.
Right.
Also with the military, and this is the big thing about our organization that I talk about frequently, is when you're in the military, they're training you for that military machine. Whatever your job is, that's what they're training you for. That's their purpose, right? But when you go to get out, there's no debrief. There's no retrain to go home. There's no nothing. It's set you at the gate. See you later. I don't know what to tell you. And then you hear the horror stories of the VA, and some of it's rumor, some of it's stigma, what have you. But you're left with really nothing. It's you went from doing your job day in, day out with the brothers and sisters you served with, your family, and it's uprooting you. Think about kind of the reason I brought the kid thing up is look at who joins the military, right? Typically, it's kids straight out of high school.
Right.
Yeah.
I went from mom and dad's house to the military. I went from mom and dad giving me direction to the military who's giving me direction. Now I'm getting out. Now I have no direction.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
You have to direct yourself.
Right. So they're setting you at the gate. You don't know where to go. There's no information. You don't know the signs and symptoms of anything you might be dealing with. Nobody flagged you for anything. So again, I don't think it's a cookie cutter problem. On the solution side, I've been especially recently, I've been advocating for some type of change in legislation or culture where one, we really need to talk about mental health. You know, I know what the statistics, if you look, you can go look this up. If you look at the statistics of psychological evals and studies that's been done, 2/3 of the reports couldn't be duplicated, et cetera. But there is definitely something there, right?
Right.
There's value. I know because I see it every day, not just with our clients, but within myself, the value of peer support and talking about the issues and hardships I went through is actually a big benefit to me, you know? So one of the things we've been pushing is the recognition of mental health needs and disorders, pushing for changes in legislation or practice when it comes to these evaluations being done. Looking at possibly a debrief period, okay? So you do a 4-year enlistment. Let's extend it to 4.5 years. You're going to know this before you sign up, right? So you're still signing the same contract. They're just giving you 6 months to start that transitional period.
Right.
And then they can do these tests or what have you and make sure that you have the resources, et cetera. I think the VA needs to step more up to the plate. You know, right here we're dealing with our own VA issues. You know, coming home and getting out of the military and hearing that, oh, well, we're taking this service away from you or we're closing this facility is not very beneficial to a veteran's mental health or physical health, nor is it beneficial to the retention rates of the United States military.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Right.
So, again, I don't think it's a cookie cutter problem. I don't think there's a cookie cutter solution. I think there's a lot of things that could change. But we know from history that mental health and the recognition of mental health needs has only come to the forefront of conversations over the last 10, 20 years.
Yeah.
So I think we're in the right direction. There's just a lot of work that still needs to be done.
Yeah. And I think your point is a really good one that we're not getting any mental health evaluation when you go in or when you come out because everybody's going to come in at a different baseline, right?
Right.
Like what you're saying is, there could be well-adjusted kids that, they came from a great home and it was very stable and so on and so forth, but they still have some issues that they dealt with. They're going to be different from the kid with, no father figure in the house and maybe other things like that. Right. And so knowing that going in, when you get to the end of that enlistment and you put that same test on them, you could see somebody that needs a lot more work. Right. You could see somebody that doesn't need as much. You don't know.
We looked at this from a criminal justice standpoint too. So like gangs, for example, broken homes, childhood trauma, military, same thing, broken homes, childhood trauma, right? And to your point, when you go through the military, how much more stress and trauma are you causing that individual on top of stuff they haven't already dealt with?
Yeah.
Most kids from broken homes haven't dealt with that childhood trauma.
Right.
And then all of a sudden now you're throwing them in a combat zone or et cetera. So you're just compounding it. And some people might push through, But you know what? Numbers don't lie. I mean, look at, we always talk about 22 a day, which is, 6,000 veterans taking their life by suicide every year. Look at the 117 to 171,000, depending on what stat you go from, on the incarceration rate, the 37,000 that are homeless, the umpteen million that are suffering from some type of mental health disorder. Numbers don't lie.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think that it's, like I said, I don't think it's a cookie cutter problem. I don't think it's a cookie cutter solution. But I will say this is one thing that I promote through our organization. One thing that I think we're really good about is we're peers, and peers is shared experience, shared stories, shared time. When we first started, I got in multiple arguments with the VA mental health personnel because they're like, "Oh, you're not peer support. You're not, you don't deal with drugs and alcohol only." And I'm like, "Yeah, but what's the definition of a peer?"
Yeah.
Shared experience. So we are peer supporters because they served in the military and I served in the military, and I firsthand experienced. I remember the story I told you about me working with the guys coming out of incarceration.
Mm-hmm.
I watched my own personal growth by having that peer level conversation and being around people that had shared experience with their struggles on getting out and everything. So I see the benefit in what we do. And I see it not only on a professional level, I see it on a personal level.
Yeah.
And we always try to tell people that come into our organization, it's not for everybody, right? Because we are very strict and we do what we do. We honed our craft, right? But when you come in, it is a family environment.
Yeah.
And I want to share one more story about the peer part of it, or the good side of it. We did a golf outing last year at Dogwood Hills. We had Korean War veterans, Vietnam War veterans, my era, people younger than us and everything. So they were coming in on the turn at the clubhouse, and we were sitting out there and we were telling jokes. We were telling jokes you don't want your wife and kids around. But anyway, we were telling jokes. And but it was jokes related to specific stories of our time in the service.
Sure.
And at one moment, I looked up and looked around, and it was every veteran golfer just standing in front of the clubhouse. And we were all laughing, and we were all, taking that moment of camaraderie, that brotherhood together. And that, to me, was like the best moment of the golf outing. I didn't care about who won or anything.
Right.
And we watch that, and I see that on a daily level for those that really want it or need it. And that's why I think that we were put here for a reason. I think that I was on the right path with, my correctional choice, and then moving forward with this. And, again, numbers don't lie. With under 3 years, I think just under 3 years, 1,100 people. So,
Yeah.
That's great.
We've touched on this a couple of times today, but I want to dive in a little bit deeper. We've been talking a little bit about this closure of the VA, choke out the VA, and
Mike's
the proposal.
trying to get me mad.
Yeah, I don't want to get you mad. But you said you used to be a fighter. We have to fight a little bit right now, and I proposed this today, a letter from the chamber that would be signed on by all the businesses. And I think that's just one little part of what we can do. But I think
that's actually awesome, because we actually, in our little group of, state legislators and stuff, we had been discussing the impact to the business side of things.
Oh, 100%. Yes. I mean, just alone. I mean, look at the hit that we take, just unemployment wise, right?
Well, so I actually have the numbers. Okay. 1,473 employees. That's prior to mass walkouts and et cetera, right? Mm-hmm. About 100 of those run the 6C box. So let's, for argument's sake, say 1,300. So 161 million in taxable revenue based on income for each year. This is 2021.
Right.
Okay. By rough estimates, tax revenue would decrease in the Ross County region alone by $2.2 million. Not to mention the burden this is where I'm gonna just kind of like whatever. But
Go on, man.
no, we did our research. We dove in. We actually have LSE, which is legislative services from the Ohio. The Ohio State House is working with us to do a social economical impact statement, which I proposed.
Awesome.
Because we were looking at, they're sitting there saying, hey, we're going to do this because it's going to save us so much money and we're going to be able to put more resources into veterans care. But if you actually read the report, so what we're talking about is the AIR committee. So in 2018, the Mission Act came into law. Part of that Mission Act was an AIR committee and a review of all VA facilities. And what it was proposed was it was supposed to be help grant access to care for veterans. But that's not what it's doing. Mm-hmm. Basically, what they did was they went through whoever these people are for the market assessment, went through, and they looked at VA facilities and they said whether this VA facility should stay, go, or change the way it does business. Well, in Chillicothe, we were told that basically they went out to that 308-acre campus, and that's all they looked at. And they looked at buildings that were already marked for demolition or renovation versus looking at the $128 million renovations they did over the 10 years. Mm-hmm. They didn't really go talk to staff. They didn't find out anything from veterans.
Didn't talk to any stakeholders in the
right.
community.
There was, a matter of fact, myself, this is a very personal / professional story. I asked to be in a stakeholders meeting about the market assessment specifically, and I was told basically to shut up and color and get bent.
Yeah.
It was no, you are not allowed to attend this meeting. And I still have the email for anybody that's listening that wants to see the email.
No. I am curious for sure.
We had people on the vet council that called up there to talk to certain people, and they said, who is this? And the person said their name, and the other person, the VA staff member, was like, I'm not allowed to transfer you.
Yeah.
You specifically, I'm not allowed to transfer.
Yeah, they're like, oh, here you are on the banned list, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Anyway, we did our research. We know the job loss and all this and that, and they keep talking about, well, this is gonna save us money. And one thing I always get mad about is because this is at the federal government. Let's realize that first. It's not state legislators pushing
Correct,
us,
yeah.
right? So they sit there and go, this is going to save us money. Well, you had no problem writing trillions and trillions in war debt when it benefited you. Mm-hmm. But now that we're coming home, you want to close the checkbook. There should never be a cost for a veteran coming home, ever. If you don't want to pay the cost, then don't send veterans to war. It's that simple, right?
Yeah, right.
Not just that, one of the things I talked to Sherrod Brown specifically about and our state legislators is I think there should be a wartime tax, or not really a tax, but a component that says you have to implement 25% of your war budget has to go back to veteran health care. Mm. So if you spend $1 trillion, you're spending $250 billion on VA health care.
Yeah.
Right.
But anyway, we did our research about this, and we looked at the 308 acres, and we talked to veterans all across the thing. And again, I'm the biggest person. I get so much flack on our social media about, I can't believe you're defending the VA and all this and that. I'm not defending the VA.
Right.
I scrutinize the heck out of the VA.
Sure,
and
yeah.
normally it's about bad policies and procedures. Don't get me wrong. Matter of fact, I talked about the clients that we lost because of opioid prescriptions, because of the VA opioid crisis. They were one of the biggest pill mills in the United States.
Yep.
Right? I'm not defending the VA. What I'm saying is, according to the market assessment and the recommendations that were given, there was no guarantees to back up any type of resource or have any type of facility. So let's do the math. 1,300 staff facility, then you have 100 staff that run 6 CBOCs in 6 different counties, okay? The recommendations is to close the Chillicothe VA as it stands and operate as a CBOC. On average, that's 25 staff members. So you're going to go from a 1,300 staff facility down to 25 staff. And you're proposing that you're going to operate at 100% capacity that you operate at now. It's not going to happen.
Right.
And I've been very transparent about, had they came out and said we were going to put a CBOC, guaranteed we would put a CBOC in every county, or we would open up choice or something like that, I probably wouldn't be in this fight. But that's not what it is.
Right.
It was a recommendation to close with proposals of a CBOC in Ross County and a CLC, which is a nursing home, over in Pickaway County. First off, again, we're dealing with the federal government.
Yeah.
You're going to tell me they're going to build 2 federal buildings 20 minutes apart? I don't see that happening, first and foremost. Second of all, what happens to the access of care for those that are dependent upon the VA?
Yep.
Okay? Because we live in Appalachia, Ohio, and this has been my big component about this argument or this fight. You're not only are you recommending these things, but you never guaranteed anything. You never said this is a guarantee, this is a done deal, this is what we're doing. So your proposal, and this is why I'm in this fight. Your proposal is to remove something, but no guarantee or no plan to put something in its place. That's why I don't support it. Had you come out and said you were going to put a CBOC guaranteed or this other program or make sure and ensure that every veteran in the state of Ohio has access to care, I would be in this conversation.
Yeah.
But that's not what they did.
Right.
It was simply removal or denial of access with nothing in its place. And that I can't support. And that's what people are all like, yeah, I can't believe you're defending the VA. No, again, holding the VA very accountable, scrutinize the heck out of them. But I don't agree with removing something without putting something in its place that's guaranteed. And what got me was even more heated in this conversation was we talked to, again, Vietnam, Korea, my era, younger, where Affordable Care Act. Everybody's required to have insurance, right? So we were finding veterans that, A, didn't qualify for Medicaid or Medicare, B, could not afford their company insurance, and or C, did not were not eligible for the subsidies through the Affordable Care Act. So guess who they relied on? The VA.
Yeah.
And now you're saying, okay, again, VA has its problems, and I'm thinking of one person I've had a conversation with where they're like, the VA this, the VA that. Yes, I get it. But you're literally, because of your complaint and your problem, you want to restrict access to care for all these hundreds of thousands of other veterans. Chillicothe VA serves 20,000 veterans in Appalachia, Ohio. Go read the market assessment. They're not just talking about Chillicothe. Go look at the hospitals that they're going to close or restrict services in all of Appalachia, all the Ohio River. So now you just went from 20,000 to how many?
Right.
Yeah.
And this is why I tell people this isn't just a Chillicothe or Ross County problem. This isn't even just an Ohio problem. This is a national problem because we've talked to other people around Indian reservations and rural communities where they're proposing to do the same.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, look, I get that, you got to be frugal, but there's a way to be frugal without restricting benefits to the veterans. Why are you paying certain people in high-power positions what you're paying them?
Yeah.
First and foremost.
Yeah.
Another issue is the VA, a lot of people don't know this. The VA is not veteran majority ran. It is civilian majority ran.
Correct, yep.
And, I think that's part of the problem is the decision-making, right? They're looking at it from numbers, and that was one of the things that they said about the Chillicothe VA. Well, we brought on these numbers crunchers, and I'm like, okay, so you're talking about saving money. This is kind of where I was going with this.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about saving money, and you're crunching numbers. Now, not only did you take into account the 20,000 veterans that you're going to affect in the area, not only did you not take into account the 1,400 employees that you're going to affect, you still keep claiming that you're going to save money, but in your own assessment, it says that it would cost more to close it than to renovate it, for one. And two, these are federal dollars, right? Who's going to foot the bill for the lost tax income revenue? Mm-hmm. Who's going to fit the bill for Medicaid because you can't find jobs for the 1,300 people that work there? Who's going to foot the bill for food stamps because they can't find jobs? The federal government. You're literally saying one thing, not realizing that one affects the other. And I don't think they looked at this clearly. Or they know it and they just
ignore it.
Well,
that's possible too.
I don't think they looked at the whole picture. Now that being said, I'm just going to let it fly right here. I think that the current director, for whatever purpose, I think she was purposely sent here. I think this has been a systematic approach. Matter of fact, I was in a town hall meeting that was widely advertised and caught news media here in Chillicothe. And I was finding out the Chillicothe VA used to offer things that I never even knew existed. And those services or those buildings are still in existence at that campus. But what you watched was a decrease in services.
Yep.
And with the director, if you look, she was removed from her position in Montana. And if you go look at Helena news article, it was almost like checking the boxes. When I read the news article about what she did in Montana, it was checking the boxes. She was doing the same thing here. I think this was planned.
Well, we've had a revolving door out there,
Right.
in the main suite for a decade,
Yeah.
Right.
at least 6-8 years for sure.
Well, but again, I think these policymakers, and I'm not just blaming the director. You know, she probably has marching orders, right? I do think her being a veteran, you would think she'd be more of an advocate for veterans specifically. But I think the politicians and the powers that be, and I have to be very careful what I say because of our nonprofit status. So I'm not holding Democrat or Republican responsible for this. I'm just saying in general that because you can look across both aisles. I mean, both parties are part of this problem.
Yes.
And when you're electing or appointing people that never served to be the secretary of the VA, there's an issue. There's a breakdown in leadership right there. And then on top of it, you want to compound it with bad policy. And one of the things they talked about in the market assessment is the underutilization of the VA. Well, when you deny access to care for, let's see, guard, same oath, same training,
Right.
can't receive VA benefits, reservist, same oath, same training, can't get care, different types of discharges. My big thing, one of the things we advocate for DRD, when we personally do not look at your discharge. We're just verifying that you serve, right? And the reason we did that is because in order to know the real conditions of somebody's discharge, you'd probably have to have a court order. Recently, since we were talking about mental health earlier, the Army and Navy, and I believe the Air Force jumped on too, there was 258,000 bad paperwork discharges currently under review. So if the military is recognizing that things happen that shouldn't have happened, why is the healthcare system that is there to afford us those services, why are they so concerned about it?
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So they're literally cutting their nose off and saying, well, we're underutilized. Well, you're the one that caused it.
Yeah.
Oh, we don't have the budget. That's because you're spending money where you shouldn't be spending money.
Yeah.
Well, I read same time that this whole report came out. There's some VA campus in, I think it was California or something. It's got there was an oil rig on it, a baseball field. There was another one that they were supposed to house homeless, and it could fit like 300 homeless on it. They have like 7 people living there. And then you're sitting there, well, we're underutilized.
Yeah.
Well, you're causing it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, and not to belabor this point, but I've heard tons of stories about putting less people in beds so that way you could say, well, they're only at 50% capacity.
Right.
And not filling the wings up, not filling the floors up, because then you can say, well, it's not full.
Well, what was actually told to us was kind of in reverse of that. During COVID, they started saying they were restricting bed access because of COVID care. And then they said, well, we're at 100% capacity. No, you're not. You have 50% of your bed capacity filled. You're not at 100%.
Right.
You know, and then back to the whole systematic approach to this. So we sit on the Ross County Vet Council, and we would have public affairs from the VA there, and they would tell us stuff or whatever. But we know people, right? So they would tell us stuff, and they'd be like, oh, COVID this, COVID that. And we'd be like, that's not what we're being told. We're being told that you're taking acute care and you're moving it where we have to go to Dayton, Cincinnati, and Columbus. No, that's not true. That's not true. This was a very true conversation, the example I just provided. The very next day, it was on the Chillicothe VA website that for acute care, you had to go to Cincinnati, Dayton, or Columbus.
Yeah.
So they were using systematic I don't say it was Dr. Berger specifically. It's the politicians or legislators, lawmakers, the powers that be. Right. But this has been going on for 40 years. It's not even a new problem. That's one of the things I've talked about in these town halls was why are we having the same conversations about benefits and services that Vietnam-era veterans had to have?
Yeah.
This is very disheartening, and I think it needs to stop. I think some of these bills and practices need to be looked at and appealed, and then new practices and rules have to be put in their place where it says, hey, there will never be a restriction to care.
Yeah, I think you can go back and look at every conflict that we've ever been in part of and how the veterans that come back from those wars are mistreated by the government.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's a pattern.
Well, it's kind of like I was talking about the government with the military specifically. When you get out of the military and you go in, they're training you into this machine, but when they're done with you, it's see ya. You're at the gate. You're done. And and I think this was, if you do your research on the bonus army and all this and that, that's kind of the VA system was kind of developed because somebody recognized the need. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But I'm not a politician, so
yeah. Well, that's why it's really important for folks like you and your organization to step in and fill these gaps. Right. I want to make sure people have the information that they need. If they know somebody, they can find your website, they can call the numbers, whatever it is, email you or whatever. So give the information so that way folks know where they can find you.
Yeah, so the organization's name is Dress Right Dress after the military command. You can go on www.dressrightdress.org is our website. Go to the contact information. You'll find email addresses, phone numbers, etc., as well as the resource center here in Ross County's location. You can actually call the resource center yourself, 740-642-6204.
And you are on Facebook as well, right?
Yeah. If you ever want to know what kind of fight we're in or what we're promoting, whether it be an activity or a community event, go on Facebook. You can follow us on LinkedIn. We're all over the place.
So the people in Fayette County that used to know you as a fighter, they would probably be appreciative now of the fights that you're doing because they're.
Well, I don't know how many of those guys are still around, but the true story is actually I was at Triple Crown here in Chillicothe, and actually I shared the picture on Facebook. Two of my friends actually fight MMA. And I happened to run into them. They were high school buddies of them. And I actually talk about how we kind of fought when we were growing up and stuff.
Yeah.
As far as the Fayette County thing, I don't know how many of those people were around. It was young and dumb.
That's
Yeah. Oh, I know.
We all have those moments.
Yeah, we were all young and dumb once.
But no, the fighter mentality is still in me. I don't like to physically fight, but I like to have verbal debates on topics that are near and dear to my heart. Right. And, the veteran community, at the end of the day, we're a nonprofit, and, there's a lot of nonprofits that I could name, that who support us or are partners with us. There's very caring people that support us, especially in the Ross County community. I say this all the time, and I'm not trying to hold you guys up, but, the one thing, I said this in 2016, I was doing an interview with the Chillicothe Gazette, and I was talking about Albus and then the resources related to reentry. And fast forward in 2019, 2020, 2021, I'm seeing the same thing come to fruition, or not even to fruition, but I'm recognizing the same thing. Mm. And what I said to the Gazette was, Ross County has a plethora of resources. It is amazing. And when we came out and we said what we were doing, we were struggling. Like, we had to get the building, and, I had to work. We used the one grant for cloud-based services, and that's what it was for. That was it. Mm-hmm. That's where that whole money went. Yeah. And then we had this building and all this and that, and I'm pulling my hair out. I'm getting even grayer. I'm going, what's going on? And what I seen was the community came out, and they were like, Jeremy, we got you.
Yeah.
And there's so many good people in Ross County, so many great organizations and everything. But seeing that come out, and when I see something going on, back to the fighter mentality, with the VA and stuff, I'm going to be in the fight with you.
Yeah.
I have no problem sitting there sticking my neck out, especially if it's something that I believe in.
Right.
Yeah. Well, Jeremy, I appreciate you, man. I think you
thanks.
are doing great work. I appreciate the fact that you're out there standing in the gap for a lot of people, and I hope you just keep doing it because you're it's working for us. So thanks for being on today.
I appreciate it. We're trying.
Yep.
You're listening to the Feels Like Home podcast with Mike Throne and Marty Ford. Powered by Horizon. This is big. This is gig.
It feels a little strange, but I don't feel alone. We just settled in and it all